You're listening to The Paul Higgins Show, where ambitious tech consultants come to unlock their potential. After 18 years as a global leader, I launched several businesses, culminating in a successful exit. I'm sharing what I learned, plus what's working now from mentoring tech consultants. You will hear leaders within our industry to help you build a business you love that allows you to do what you want. If you are looking for immediate cash flow wins to fuel your growth, go to our free ebook at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap. Imagine if you could have someone do the sales follow-up for you that was 100% reliable. Hi, I'm Paul from The Paul Higgins Show, and welcome to episode 591. We've got a cracking episode for you today. In this podcast, I talked to Isabella Bedoya from MyInfinite.ai, and she talks about sales AI. And just think of a salesperson, but it's replicated by AI. So it doesn't have sick days, it doesn't have bad days, it doesn't have life getting in its road. It just does sales on your behalf. And you're going to learn three key things from Isabella. One is the three areas that you can use a sales AI for. The second is simple exercises, or a simple exercise to assess how it works for you. And the third thing is a way that you can make your clients more money. In particular, once you've implemented a sales CRM, this would help them get a much better ROI. Isabella is a serial entrepreneur and has built a reputation for growing AI-driven powered businesses to multi-six-figure revenues and beyond. With certifications as a CAIO, go into Perplexity and check what that is, and conversational AI expert. She is mastering the art of leveraging AI for impactful business outcomes. Her personal journey led her to over 42,000 LinkedIn followers organically in over 6 months, and she has had over 6 million impressions in the last year. And she's demonstrated her ability to grow creator-led businesses in today's fast-paced AI world. Isabella has been mentioned in Forbes, HubSpot, Business Insider, and many more. If you want to see Isabella live on YouTube, just go to Paul Higgins Mentoring, the YouTube channel. Now I'm going to hand you over to Isabella Bedoya from MyInfinite.ai. Great to have you here, Isabella.
Hey, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I heard you on Mike Stelzner podcast. Shout out to Mike. He's always been good to me and has some great content. And that's the AI Explored podcast. So I heard you on there and I've been following you ever since and really excited about your current project, MyInfinite.ai, which we're going to dive into more. But why don't we kick off with who are your current ideal clients and what problems you love to solve for them?
Absolutely. Our current ideal clients right now are established businesses in the SMB section, mainly the ones in direct sales like solar, finance, etc. And right now what we're helping them do is we're helping them automate their sales process using AI sales employees. That way they can increase their business without increasing their headcount.
Music to everybody's ears, because look, we all love it. People are fantastic, but I got to tell you, they are a lot harder to control than maybe what AI is, which we will we'll work in. And control's probably the right word. It's just probably optimize, right? Like I know myself. Like last week, we were meant to do this podcast, and you lost your voice. Like that's something that is only humans get to have, right? Whereas
Exactly.
the AI, you're not going to have that. And what are the typical problems that these solar finance companies, SMBs, which you watching or listening to this, a lot of you play in this space as well. What are some of the things that you see in regards to how you solve for them?
So a lot of the times they have, especially the businesses that are a little bit more established, they have CRMs, for example, full of data that they never speak to those leads. They have like super old or dormant leads. A lot of them, they are in business and maybe they're running ads or whatever the case is, but they're not answering the call or calling the people immediately. So speed to lead is a huge thing. I think those are probably the two very most important things, is making sure that you're capturing all of your activity as soon as they opt in, making sure that you're nurturing, you're qualifying, booking the appointments, doing whatever you need to do to turn that into a conversion. And then on the opposite side is always keeping that CRM active and database reactivation. And that's probably like the two most important things that can really move the needle for any business right now.
Yeah, and look, it's interesting. I've reached out to a group of partners. I won't mention who they are, but it's one of the fastest growing, I suppose, full platforms at the moment within the coaching and consulting space. And someone came back to me today, absolutely a lovely reply, but I sent it the 19th, 20th of November. I got a reply today. I'm recording this in December, right? I've already gone with someone else, but I
Yeah.
just, and they weren't the only one. There was a lot of those in that area. And, I often say that the biggest inhibitor for growth often is ourselves, right?
Yeah.
People say, I can't get new business. I'm like, well, what are you doing in regards to getting new business? And unfortunately, the cupboard's bare. So, I think this is absolutely perfect. And we're all using AI in some form, but I think this is a very specialized way. And I think you're really smart in the way that you've identified it. But sales AI, right? It's a new term in a way. Like we've heard of Einstein and in product, but this is different. So, tell us what you determine or define as sales AI, and then we'll sort of dig into some questions from there.
Absolutely. So AI, the interesting thing about AI is that it literally is it's for everything and for every process of your business, right? You can add it in your customer service, you can add it for sales, you can add it for everything. The way that a lot of people are using AI in sales right now, they're using it for processes like cold email, data enrichment. Maybe they're using it for personalizing cold emails or things like that of that nature. The way that we're using it is a little bit different. Well, it's actually very different. The way that we kind of see it, it's more of the lead life cycle. Once you have a lead opt in, it's not necessarily going out and doing lead generation to a cold audience. It's more like once the lead opts in, there's a whole back end process that needs to happen. And we've all heard it, right? Fortune is in the follow up. This whole entire back end process, that's where most humans drop the ball. And it's things that people don't want to do. They don't want to pick up the phone and call people, right? And things like that. It's really where we focus in on. And then we figured out a way to use AI voice merged with AI texting, which allows you to send out SMS and text messages, merged with a bunch of CRM automations so that they can take the same exact actions that a human sales rep would take without having to take time off or having to motivate them to do their job or anything like that. It's like what an AI sales employee is in a nutshell.
Sounds too good to be true, Isabella. So I know that,
It's pretty crazy.
it's a phasing. So, you've been in this for 15 months and I know that you're learning, by the minute. And we were joking before we went live, just, whatever we say now, this is coming out in February, you'll be more advanced. So the most important thing, just a reminder, listening to episode 591, Isabella Bedoya, and go to her LinkedIn to get the latest, right? Because she's going to give you an enormous amount of benefit, but it's going to be, some of it will be outdated by the time we go live. But I think the AI voice, let's tackle that one first. I know as an Australian, I don't think I've got an accent. Obviously, I have. I live in Australia, work in North America mainly, right? I've used so many tools at the moment, they just can't get my accent voice right. But that's me as the owner. So the first question is, are we pretending to be the owner? Or are we actually being a salesperson on behalf of the owner, or could it be a combination of both?
It's a great question. That's actually for our clients at least is usually a personal preference. Like we have some clients that for us for example, we are very transparent. We say, "Hey, I am an AI sales employee." Normally we call her Grace. So it's like, "Hey, this is Grace. I'm an AI sales employee for Infinite AI." For our clients, they have the option. They can choose to say it's an employee. They can choose to just pretend it's themselves. That's really up to the client, but the capability is there where you can clone your voice. And there are multiple accents. So just to give you an example of how the variety, right? So you can select Spanish, and it can be Colombian Spanish or Mexican Spanish or Spain Spanish. We have a client that he wanted to have an AI sales employee, right? An AI agent that has an Indian accent but speaks English. So and that's what we were able to do, right? So it really just that's customizable depending on the client.
Right. And out of 10, how close is it, like with your voice and you listening to it back? How close is it to you at the moment?
Well, if you listen to yourself, right, and I struggle with this too. Like when I have a AI video made of me, I'm always like, is that really me? But then everyone around me is like, that sounds exactly like you. And I'm like,
Gotcha.
does it really? I think that's a good question because it's so hard for like I think all of us to be able to tell that that's what we sound like, but from feedback from others, it sounds pretty similar.
Yeah, look, it was interesting. Exact same thing. Someone the other day showed a video where it was a friend of his doing a video, and he sent it and goes, "What do you think?" He goes, "Yeah, that's really good." And then he told him, "Hey, this was actually created by AI, right?" But the person was completely convinced it was him. If it isn't by February, it's going to, it's only going to get better and better. So I think that's really important. Then you can make the decision as to which one you use, or you can use both, right? Which is fantastic. So, and with the AI voice, is it only voice or is there video? Like, where does that combination kick in?
So it's actually voice tied in. It's AI voice tied in with telephony. It's not video, but it's like over the phone, the calling.
Yeah.
And the difference with a lot of there's when if you're in the space where you're looking to figure out how to do this for yourself, something to keep in mind if you're consulting clients or implementing this for your business. One thing to keep in mind is an AI voice provider is not the same thing as an AI sales employee, and that's probably one of the biggest things to keep in mind. Because the voice providers, they'll provide you the voice and they'll charge you probably by the minute. Some will have monthly subscriptions depending on the SaaS platform. And then a lot of them also will have different, some will be better, more reliable, others will have more drop calls. That just depends on the platform. When you're dealing with this, it's just important to know that the distinction because they don't always come with AI texting. As a matter of fact, none of them come with AI texting. You usually have to receive a text and a human text back, and that's the biggest differentiator. When you also attach AI texting, now when you have a callback or a text like, "Hey, you called me, missed your call," the AI kicks in, and again, speed to lead is handled. That's like the biggest differentiator. With the, I'm sure maybe in 6 months we'll have AI Zoom avatars. I think HeyGen's working on something like that. I saw that you can do live streams with HeyGen.
Yeah.
I personally haven't done one yet, but that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, it certainly didn't get my accent, but it'll get better and better, right? From a texting point of view, are you just creating multiple phone numbers, or is it actually, once again, is it using the owner's personal cell? What's sort of happening with that?
So you would use a platform called Twilio.
Yep.
Twilio just gives you telephony access, and then Twilio you pay by the minute, and it depends on the region or the country. So the way that it works is whatever voice provider you use, you would integrate it with Twilio, and then you'll get billed on Twilios for the minutes as well, depending on if it's texting or calling or whatever. But this is a process that most business owners have already done, even if they're not using AI, right?
Yes.
Because to do calls from your CRM and SMS marketing and all of that, you usually have to use Twilio anyway.
Gotcha. And I'm going to get some examples from you in a moment. So if you're waiting for that, stay tuned because, that's certainly what's going in the back of my mind is like, how does this really work? But we'll go through the three different buckets at the moment. So the last one's the CRM automation. So tell me what are the CRM automations?
So CRM automation is now what makes it powerful. The reason is because the quick example, whenever someone opts into our CRM, into our actual database, let's say they download a lead magnet or they book an appointment. So now they're added into our CRM. So there's two main automations that we programmed to kick off, and the people don't even know that this has been happening. But we programmed it so that the first one is usually a holiday campaign. So the second that a new lead is entered into the CRM, we now know that on holidays we're going to be reaching out to this particular lead. You don't even have to worry about it. You can be celebrating Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever, and your CRM is handling those leads. Second one is database reactivation as an example. If we have a rule, if within 30 days they haven't booked a call or haven't reached out or whatever the case is, then that means that the AI sales employee is automatically going to reactivate them. And this is just an example. The amount of automations are literally infinite. There's so many things, so many really cool things you can do with your sales process. But that's just to give you a visual, kind of like a small but impactful example of your leads always being nurtured without you having to do anything other than create the automation once. And when you attach AI to it, now it becomes more versatile because now it can talk back to it, it can call the person, it can check in on how they're doing, wish them a happy Thanksgiving or whatever, and then see if there's any interest in still working with your company.
Right.
And this has happened to us many times. We have gotten so many database reactivations with our own business that we forget. We're like, where did this come from? And the AI is working in the background.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I'm assuming it's not like a list on the left hand side. I call it the T. So on the left hand side of the T is all the things that you wish you could do in sales, and then on the right hand side is all the things that a sales AI can do. And I'm assuming that's only going to it covers a lot of them at the moment, but not because I know you being a tech consultant, you've got so many balls that you're juggling, and the follow up. That's often where the money just slips through the cracks, right? We all know it. We all chasing new business, but often when I'll go in and investigate, there's a whole host of stuff that you've never followed up on because CRMs, to be honest, haven't been great. They're basically just a repository of information that don't really help us do that. This is where I think this is a game changer where it starts to do
Yep.
it. We've got the AI voice, we've got the text functionality, and we've got the automations, right? So let's say that's effectively sales AI. Now, what I'd love you to do is take me through an example of a professional services business or a consulting type business that have used it. Just tell me what was the problem that they had, and then how did this play out? So we sort of get a real life example of how this could work for you.
Absolutely. The freshest example right now is one of our clients just did a he had I think maybe like 5,000 contacts in his CRM, and the week of Thanksgiving in the US, so it was about like 10 days ago from the recording of this podcast.
Yeah.
So usually that tends to be a time where a lot of business owners are saying this is my, slow month or slow season or whatever. It's really interesting because prior to this, we basically call them campaigns when we set up scheduled activities. And in this case, that campaign was to kick off the client, handing him essentially easy wins by reactivating all of his contacts that he hasn't spoken to in a while. So prior to this, his calendar was pretty empty. Now, he launched the campaign the first day. This is like also the testing period, right? It's not like the AI sales employee hasn't been fully ironed out. It's still going through that minor testing because it's the first campaign it's ever rolled out for this client. And the first day, I think he booked like 4 or 5 appointments. The next day, he ran it again, and then more appointments come in. And then the third day, now the script has been fixed a little bit, the automations have been fixed. Next thing you know, this guy has now like 30 plus booked appointments. He sends a message to the team and he's like, "How do I turn this off?" And we're like, "Oh my gosh, is this guy mad?" So we call him. We're like, "Hey, are you okay? Like, are you mad?" And he's like, "I love this thing, but I'm getting 30 callbacks a minute. I can't handle them all. Please slow it down. I want to talk to everybody." And it's like that is the craziest thing that could ever happen,
Yep.
where you're now flooded 30 calls a minute coming in to your business from your own data that is sitting there. Prior to this, there's nothing happening, and now all of a sudden, the floodgates have opened up, and you get to control the speed, right? If you want to only take 10 calls a day or whatever. And now, as a result of all this, his calendar is also packed. We had a call with him earlier today. He's like closed another deal. He's living his best life, and it's like that was very easy for him to do. Just the initial stages was just training, which takes a little bit of time. But once you get through this, the actual work that comes in is closing. And as you said, if you have a T, right, it's like what AI can do, what AI can't do. What AI can do really well is all those things that you don't like to do. And then what you really need to do there is just make sure that you're closing the deals. It still won't do the sales call for you. So that's probably one of the most recent and most impactful examples. But any professional service, we have clients in a lot of different niches. Any consultant, coach, a lot of the same. They use similar processes, whether they're giving away lead magnets on LinkedIn and they're having the AI answer stuff like that. So yeah, it's pretty impactful.
Yeah, and look, for me, it's music to my ears also because of time zones, right? Like I live in Australia, I work in North America. There's a lot of business that I know I miss because of, when I sleep, right? I think there's enormous opportunities if you're outside different time zones, etc., that it can do. And I love the name of your company, MyInfinite, because the possibilities are infinite, right? I think the where the rubber hits the road for me is the smell test on AI, right? I can get a lot of messages, I can get a lot of scripts at the moment. I'm like, that's not you, that's AI, and we've all seen the posts that got the little rocket on them, etc. And we all know. So how do you work around the fact of how the client would talk versus how the AI is talking on their behalf?
A lot of it is role playing with the AI before we launch it. And that's why in the beginning we do like test campaigns. So start off with like smaller lead lists and we're like, okay, let's start small sample sizes so we can listen to the calls and stuff like that. But really it really boils down to just going through if you already have a sales process in place, training it on your script and then training it comes down to prompt engineering, right? Like when it comes to making the posts, if you leave it too broad, it's going to create something very AI generated. On the conversations, also, you have to know how to prompt it. You have to just manipulate the prompt a little bit, give it some personality, tell it not to do certain things, tell it not to be like super wordy or talk a lot and stuff like that. And ultimately, like for our use case at least, we always say that it's an AI sales employee in the beginning. So
Yeah.
I think that it kind of like overrides that. But it's interesting. We had a client that called 65,000 people of her contacts in about 60 days. And she called all these people. And the most interesting thing is that she was in the business loan broker. And what was interesting is that she was telling AI was asking like, "Oh, what's your credit score?" All these like personal information, and the people were answering and they were telling their whole backstory and they're like, "Oh, this happened," and then we were like, out of all those calls, I think 5,000 people answered, 91 appointments were booked without a human, and less than 100 people asked to be transferred to a human from the 5,000 people that answered. It's like the most craziest thing. I used to think that there's no way, but every time I get proven wrong, every time we run a campaign, people don't see, there's a bunch of people on this planet that don't seem to mind and actually prefer talking to AI.
Yeah, and I think, we'll only get more and more used to it. I think for me, I'm after efficiency, and I think I'd much rather just get what I want as quick as I possibly can, right? It's frustrating sometimes when you talk to people that are also tied down by poor systems, etc., and they just can't get you and they escalate you and each person forgets. And, if all of that goes out of the world, I think that's great. I suppose the great thing is there is an escalation because I was going to ask you that question. So that makes sense. I suppose it's the thing I worry a little bit is the pipe, right? Is that, it's like our inboxes, it's like etc. And all of a sudden it'll be, our phones, etc. Like all of a sudden there's just going to be, if everyone starts using this, how do you differentiate? There's a first mover advantage where I think you guys are going to definitely get benefit of this if you reach out to Isabella. But what's the long-term view from your perspective of when people just get sick of being overwhelmed?
Well, that's a really good question. I think it depends on the use case really, because if you're seeing it from a cold calling lens, then yeah, then you fit in that bucket, right? Where it's like, oh gosh, here comes another person. Then you have the gray area. People ask you like the legalities around cold calling. So if you're using it for that, then I could see it. There's still a huge population or percentage of population on the planet that will answer the cold calls. But on the opposite side, if you use it to improve the efficiency, right? Where it's like making sure that when they book an appointment, they're getting appointment reminders, making sure that they're getting nurtured before the call happens so that your closer has a way better conversation. If you're figuring out how to, another automation we have, for example, is if someone cancels a call, it immediately, the AI reaches out to reschedule them. And in the direct space, the direct sales space, it's very fascinating. A lot of the business owners that we speak with, they talk to the lead one time and they never reach out again.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Keep in contact. They will convert at one point.
I think that's a brilliant response because you started at the start, you mentioned it, but I think it's good to tie it back that this is people that you've already had some relationship with. Often they want to hear from you, you just don't. And you think about how many times you go on to buy a product and you've got down the pipe and all of a sudden life got in the way and you forgot about it. You still have that need, but you just also have life going on. So you don't think about it. But if that company contacted you back, 90% of the time you'd actually buy it, right? And I've got so many examples of that. And for me, I know myself, I'll go back and look at my follow-up and it is poor because I'm doing it mainly manually and life gets busy, right? Yeah, I think this, if it's only picking up the things that you should do that you're not, wow, isn't that the opportunity, right? And I think, yes, there's always, privacy, there's always pipeline. But I think if you get onto this early and you use it well to do the things that you should be doing and you're not, I think that's enough for you to reach out to Isabella and say, hey, how can I use it? But there's also two benefits here. It's not just how you can use it, which is great, but it's also how your clients can do it. Just think of this as how could you have this as an added service to you're putting in a sales CRM, Salesforce, Zoho, you name it. And then you also have this service on top of that. So people are doing what you want them to do in the first place. Because how often does someone blame you for a poor implementation or they didn't get the ROI? But it's because they never did the follow-up, right? Like it happens to us so often. This is a way of lessening that gap. But look, Isabella, I could talk forever, and I know you could as well on this. We'll get you back because this does constantly change. And if you want to know more, all the links will be in the show notes, but it's MyInfinite.ai. But Isabella, we're going to just pause for a second, and then we're going to come back while we thank our sponsors, and then we're going to go into the rapid fire. Running a tech consulting business can feel like a solo journey, but what if you didn't have to navigate it alone? Introducing the Tech Collective, your go-to resource for tackling those burning questions and unlocking your potential. Join a dynamic collective of experienced tech consultants ready to share insights, strategies, and support to help you today. Grappling with sales, clients, team challenges, our Tech Collective has your back. Join us today at paulhigginsmentoring.com/TC. There's a link in the show notes. There's a small application, and as a thank you for being a listener, enter the coupon code TC, capital TC25 at checkout. That's TC25 to get 25% off. Visit paulhigginsmentoring.com/TC today. So, rapid fire. I'm going to ask you 4 questions, get 4 rapid responses. Are you ready for that?
Well, yep, let's do it.
All right, great. So the first thing is, what do you do? Your daily habits to make you really successful in scaling MyInfinite.ai.
First thing, mindset is everything. Some people might think it's woo, but you really have to get your mindset right. You have to stay focused. You got to keep an open mind, abundance, growth mindset. Like, if you don't have that right, you're always going to be in victim mode. You're going to think the world is out to get you, and you're not going to be efficient throughout the day. So mindset, 100% is everything.
Brilliant. The next is, where do you go to learn more about AI yourself?
Well, social media like LinkedIn, TikTok, there's even YouTube. There's a lot of great resources. I learn a lot from, I don't know if you guys have heard, or if you've heard of Heather Murray, Audrey Chia, Matthew Lakajev. There's a lot of LinkedIn creators that I follow that I learn a lot from. Adam Biddlecombe also, he's always sharing like the latest and greatest in AI. And you also have your own network, your own community. Staying plugged in sources like that, that's how you stay ahead in the game.
Yeah, brilliant. And just quickly on the Tech Collective, which you can find out more about at paulhigginsmentoring.com/TC. We've got now a dedicated Slack channel just to AI within all the channels. So, it's top of mind for everyone. Next, if I could grant you one wish for MyInfinite.ai, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I do think that it would be awesome whenever we are able to have AI sales agents that can jump on a Zoom and do the closing call on Zoom. I predict it'll probably be another 6 months, maybe a year, I don't know. But that will be something when that comes to life.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And last but not least, you've been in this for 15 months around the sales AI. What do you know now that you wish you had known 15 months ago?
I got to witness pretty much the birth of AI voice, and AI voice for sales, right? Because there's AI voice like ChatGPT, you can talk to it and that's different. AI voice for telephony. When I first got involved, it appeared to be a lot easier than it was. And it appeared to be something that it's like, oh yeah, everyone's going to want it. After 15 months of trying and testing and all these different things, it's so much harder than it's portrayed to be. When you are getting involved with AI, I'm not discouraging anyone to do it, but it's just something to be aware of. When you're getting involved with AI for your business, the number one thing is you have to have a plan. And number 2 is you have to understand how it works and how you're going to make it work for your business. And then number 3 is you have to have at least in the stage that we're in life right now, is you have to be willing to try and test.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that we had is we had to rebuild the same thing at least 6 or 7 times. And every time we had to reiterate and reiterate and reiterate. And a lot of the times it wasn't until we stopped saying, look at my shiny tool, and people started saying, can I get a free trial? And it's like, well, you can't get a free trial. We have to build the workflows and the systems and the scripts for you. So when we repackaged it as an AI sales employee and we compared it to a human employee, that was the biggest shift, because now people that have no idea about AI were able to kind of conceptualize, but we're still very early on in the market that we still have that. It's a blessing and a curse. We're still early on, but the whole world is still trying to catch up to what it is.
Yeah, and because you're in this game as well, watching or listening to this show, that it's incredible just still how vast our human experience is. Still companies out there and spreadsheets, still companies out there on paper, etc. And we're talking about sales AI. So there's a massive band of capabilities, but I think for you that that you want to help more people, this is a great way of doing it. So reach out to Isabella, as I said, MyInfinite.ai. She's got a school group that you can join. Follow her on LinkedIn, because things will definitely change. But Isabella, great to have you on the first time. I look forward to having you on again in the future.
Well, thanks for having me. Can't wait for the second time. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching.
What a wonderful interview with Isabella, and this is the future, right? So it's just a matter of when you get onto this. We've brought it to you early, as she said. People are really still starting to understand what an AI sales agent is, or a sales employees. But believe me, you got to get onto this. Follow her on LinkedIn, because things would have changed from when we did this in December to February now. She'll have more updates for you. You can go join her community, share it with your friends, certainly those that aren't direct competitors, which many of them aren't, because they'll get enormous benefit from this. Go and see Isabella and I on YouTube at the Paul Higgins mentoring channel, and please, subscribe if you like it. And I'll see you next time on the Paul Higgins Show. Time for action. Let me know what you implemented from the show. I promise to respond. Plus, get the Tech Consultants Roadmap at paulhigginsmentoring.com/roadmap.